pick a melody rhythm and choose A, B, C, or D on the assignment sheet. Okay, so that's a separate file that I sent out to everybody. It says melody rhythms. And what we're doing here is we're putting you into sort of a prescribed rhythm for your melody that you're going to fill in later. And I'm doing this for a specific reason. I'm sort of trying to make this as foolproof as possible. And the way that we're going to interpret this is you'll see basically two types of notes. And I'm going to use example number 1 from the assignment sheet, okay? And if you have that in front of you, it's going to look like this. Okay, so here is example number 1. And I'll go ahead and just count it for you and sort of clap the rhythm, or maybe I'll play it on a C or whatever. So it goes like this: 2, ready, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you'll notice that on the assignment, it actually has these little arrows pointing up at some of the notes. What does that mean? Well, basically, those arrows are reminding you that those particular subdivisions are considered to be upbeats. So if we count this, and you'll notice that when I played it, I said 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. 4 and 1. So the and of 4 is a subdivision. It's not on the beat, it's in between the numbers. 2, 3, 4, and 1. So all of the notes that are subdivisions, that are ands, have a little arrow. And it's going to affect how we choose the melody notes that we're going to plug into this thing. So for step number 2, you just pick. You cannot screw it up. Once again, I've given you 8 bars in each example, so you could do the same one twice, or you could pick 2 different ones. They get sort of progressively more complicated, have more stuff in them, and maybe it's a little bit more fun because there's more notes to put in, and it just gets more active as you move your way down the sheet. So if you wanted to start with A or B and then end up with C or D, that might be kind of fun because there'll just be more notes for you to plug in. But you can do whatever you like. Any of them are good. They all will work. So again, just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to use letter A, and I've already written the rhythm on my board here. So step number 2 is super dirt easy. Literally just pick A, B, C, or D for 16 bars worth of rhythm. That's it. It's all you got to do. Here comes step number 3. This is maybe the tricky part, but I really think of it more of just like putting a puzzle together. So let's go through the little grid, the little kind of spreadsheet that I have there under step 3. It says choose your melody notes. All right, so it's listing the chords both as numbers and as the chord symbol notation for your key. Some of you are in the key of C, some of you are in B flat, some of you are in the key of D major. So the notes change depending on what key you're in. And if you're in the key of D, for instance, the first chord, the number 1 chord, should say D major, D. I'm going to do the example here using the key of C. And I think all of you should have all 3 of those sheets. I gave them all to you, but when you do your assignment, you'll have to adjust. But this is a good way to demonstrate. So if you look at the sheet, we have basically a set of 3 notes mostly that are marked as downbeat notes. And then below, it basically says any note or all notes are good. Okay, on the upbeats. What does that mean? Well, let's go through it and figure it out. So if we're looking at the rhythm here, measure number 1, it starts with a dotted half note and it starts on beat 1. So that's a downbeat. If it starts on a number, it's a downbeat. It's on the beat. So that's a down. So if the chord is C and it's a downbeat, if you look at your chart, you just go to C major chord and downbeat. There are 3 options, and I'll write them here: C, E, and G. So what that means is that you can use any of those 3 notes to be the first note of your melody. And right now it's already starting on a C, so maybe I'll just leave it there. So that's cool. We're going to use the C as the first note of our melody. The next note starts on beat 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Since it's on the beat, it's also a down. We get to choose from the same 3 notes. So we can repeat the note, which happens a lot actually in melodies. We can play a C again, or we could choose a different note. I'm going to just go simple, and I'm just going to repeat the note. So we've got C, we'll play C again, and that fits. It's totally cool. The last note of this measure is an upbeat. So according to our chart, on an upbeat, for any chord, you can play basically any note that you want in the key of C. It has to be from the key of C. Key of C doesn't have any sharps or flats, so we can't just add literally any note from the keyboard, but any note that's in the key of C is okay. However, some choices are better than others. So one of the things that I tried to express in the Zoom class was that when we do a non-chord tone, these right here in the key of C are what we would consider as chord tones. They're tones that belong to the chord of C. And all the other notes are considered non-chord tones. So we just have to be careful about the following. And I think I wrote this before in the class. So we have the ability to step, skip, and leap. A step is when you move from one note to the very next note, right? So if I go from C to D, that's a step. Like you're going up and down the steps. A skip is when we go every other note, like this. And a leap is anything that's bigger than a skip. So, or here, or here. Those are all leaps. Okay. If we're going to skip or leap, at least for this assignment, it has to be between chord tones. So I'm not letting you skip or leap to a non-chord tone or between non-chord tones. And the reason for this is the following. When we do those skips, we basically outline a chord. Like if I start on a C and I skip and then I skip, I'm basically creating a chord. So if I was playing a C chord in measure number 1 and I started skipping between notes that are not part of that chord, like this, it doesn't work. The melody's going to imply that we're actually playing a different chord than the one we're playing. So skipping and leaping needs to occur between chord tones. And then it'll fit. All right. However, we can step. And there are a couple of different kinds of steps that we can do. And then I'm going to use on this example. One of them would be a passing tone. Where we pass from one area up to the next or maybe downward. And another possibility is a neighbor tone, where you maybe go up and back down or down and back up. Okay? So check out. We've got a downbeat and a downbeat. Those are both going to be C. Our last note is an upbeat. It could be any note that we want. In fact, it could be a C, but I'd like to change it, and I think I'm going to go up. So since we can't do skips or leaps between non-chord tones, they have to be chord tones, I'm going to step up. So the last note of this measure is going to be a D. I'm stepping up. And then if you look at the first note of the next measure, well, now the chord has changed. So if you look at your grid for the F major notes, for downbeats, the possibilities are going to be F, A, and C. Those are the chord tones that you can use underneath an F major triad, F major chord. So according to the chart, if I'm playing a downbeat with an F chord, then I could use an F, A, or C. So C would actually be okay. So I could play this melody right here. And 2, 3, 4, and it would work totally fine. Let me play it for you with the chords. Here we go. 2, 3, right? It doesn't suck. It doesn't not work. It works. It's not, you know, moving me to tears or anything like that, but it's fine. 2, 3. Yeah. So that's a possibility. And in fact, in this case, it's kind of the only possibility. But let me go back and change something so that you can see maybe another option. So if I get rid of that one, let's say instead of going up, I'm going to go down at the end of that measure. It's an upbeat, so I can use any note I want. I go down, and then when I land on the F chord in measure number 2, on a downbeat, I can pick F, A, or C. So I'm going to land on an A. And now that B right there becomes a passing tone. It's passing from the C down to the A. And it would sound like this. 1, 2, 3. All right, so it's walking its way down to the A. And if I play the chords, it sounds something like this. 2, 3. Right? And that works. It doesn't suck either. So you have to make choices. You have to decide, do you want it to go up? Do you want it to go down? And you're kind of directing the pathway of the shape of the melody. And you're doing it based on these rules of playing chord tones on the downbeats. Any note you want on an upbeat, as long as it kind of follows these conventions right here. So some things to consider. Melodies often repeat notes, like we did in the first measure. Melodies often move by step. We don't want to leap or skip between non-chord tones. So if you're going to skip or leap, you sort of want it to be here. So maybe if you have a lot of downbeats in a row, that would be a good chance to do some leaping or skipping. So I'm gonna fast forward to the last measure, the C chord, and it's all downbeats. It's quarter, 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 quarter. So in this case, I could do skips, and I could even do leaps. Like I'm gonna do this, right? So now we've got C to E, that's a skip, and then look, E to G, that's a huge leap. But because we're on a C chord, once again, these are the chord tones. And so I'm going from an E down to a G. That's cool. You can go as far as you want as long as they're chord tones. So in the last measure, if I played that, it would sound just fine. Right? Works totally fine. All right. So you're going to start by doing the chord changes across the top. Maybe lightly pencil in the melody rhythm. Put it on the staff, but really lightly in pencil so that you can erase the notes and move the pitch up or down according to the chart that you see in step number 3.